Welcome, everyone, and also everyone watching the recording. I'm Leyton Schnellert, and I am the coordinator of this MEd program, and it's Master of Education and Curriculum Studies, and we call it Practitioner Inquiry and Place-Conscious Pedagogies. It begins this August, actually the last week of July, 2026, and the length is 2 years and one term, so 7 terms. And the format is blended, which means we come together in person in summer in Nelson, BC, but all other coursework is online during the year because we have folks in the cohort from all over BC, the Yukon, and the Northwest Territories, and often Alberta as well. So here we are on Musqueam territory on this gorgeously foggy, mysterious day. The land is speaking and nature is telling us something. We are so grateful to be here on the land of the Musqueam, this unceded territory, and so grateful that the Musqueam have engaged with us. And as we engage in practices that not just welcome their culture, but also recognize their right to this space and how their culture is intertwined both with the language and the land and is inseparable. Um, you can see that, or I can maybe just describe briefly that the face-to-face part of the program takes place on Sinixt territory. And so that's in the interior of BC. And we consciously engage with Sinixt ways of knowing and being within the program as well. Here's our agenda. I'm going to talk a little bit about the program structure and overview. That's my part. Kelvin will talk about how to apply and different factors, and then we'll still be here for Q&A to answer any questions you might have. Here it comes, program structure, feel the excitement. So you can see it says August 2026. We do start just the very last week of July, everyone. And we begin, that first course is taught by myself as the coordinator. And so we really look at what are different conceptions of place in education and how do I take them up in my practice, as well as saying, what are you interested in? What brings you to this focus and where's your inquiry interest? It might not be related to place. It might be related to something else, but everything does connect to your place. And so you have me for the first 2 weeks. So that's the last week of July and the first week of August, into the first week of August. And then the first week of August into the second week of August, you have Dr. Lisa Lotzenheiser, and she'll teach the course called Curriculum Issues and Theories. She likes to call it Theory Boot Camp, which is like, what are foundational understandings of curriculum? Where did it come from? And then how do we maybe question and position ourselves in ways that are meaningful to us, maybe versus ways we don't even realize that we're kind of working with things. And so it's a really beautiful course, and Lisa teaches it exceptionally well. So that's our first summer. And so it occurs over over 3 weeks, last week of July and first 2 weeks of, last week of July, first 2 weeks of August. Then in the fall, Dr. Joaquin Munoz, who is just a remarkable educator and teacher, Indigenous scholar, will teach the course called Exploring Indigenous Historical and Cultural Sites for Learning. And those classes happen on Saturdays, and we meet 6 times over the course of the term, spaced out. And part of that time will be also engaging with your local place to learn about your own, the local Indigenous culture in the spaces that you're in, so you can connect that to your teaching. Joaquin is a magnificent teacher and orator, and folks have really, really loved that course. Then when we go into January 2027, that has typically been taught by Dr. Donna Kozak, and that's the very first time you start to build your inquiry project for the program. And so all through the program, we help you build your inquiry plan. And so in January 2027, Donna will get you thinking about connecting back to what Lisa did in the curriculum issues course. But it'll be, what are the different ways I can theoretically position myself? What are the different approaches to pedagogy and what matches me and what I'm about? And so by the end of that course, you'll have something called your literature review completed. And so your literature review, well, maybe I shouldn't say that. You'll have your conceptual framework completed, which is like, what are the key ideas I'm working with and how does those relate to understandings of teaching and pedagogy? And so that's an excellent course. And Donna is both a great teacher and very gentle and supportive, and folks really appreciate that. Then we move into May. Oh, so also 6 Saturdays from January to April is course number 4. Then we get to the May course, which is Research Methodology and Education. And the last time we did this, we actually taught this on a weeknight. So I don't think we've decided we'll have to canvass the group. But last time we did it on Tuesday nights from 4:30 to 7:30, and that gave you a chance to build your proposal, everybody. Oh my goodness. So you're going to go from what am I focusing on with Donna and how do I position myself to how will I do my inquiry? And so in that course, we'll look at practitioner inquiry and how to design your inquiry project. Then you will come back together in July 2027, again, the last week of July and the first week of August. And that's our chance to look at a review of research and curriculum pedagogy. What that is, everybody, is you're saying, what does research say about my topic? You build what's called your literature review there. And the last 2 times we've had Dr. Medjabeen Datu teach that course, and so we'll likely have Medjabeen teach that course again. And so it's really nice. And I now remember that the research methodologies course, Education 500, is taught by Dr. Harper Keenan, a magnificent scholar and educator in my department. That brings us to September 2027. So by the end of August 2027, you will have submitted your proposal to me as your supervisor. I'll have given you feedback and will have submitted it to the Ethics Board of UBC to get approval to conduct your inquiry project. And so in September 2027, you'll get what's called provisos back, which are like, this isn't clear, clarify that while taking the course Curriculum Change, Planning and Implementation. That course has either been taught by myself or by Dr. Terry Taylor, and it's really interesting because you're like, how do structures work? How do we make change? How do we do that? So it's a little bit more of like a systems approach to understanding what surrounds what we do as educators and how do we have an impact. During that time, your proposal will be approved by the ethics board, and most people start their projects sometime in November or December, or for sure by January. So then the January 2028 course is called Living Inquiry in Learning Communities. And we do that course as you do your inquiry project. So we come back again 6 times during the term and we're reading about it and exploring how am I collecting my information? What am I seeing? And we do something called data analysis as we go to help you notice and see and figure out what you're finding through your research, which means that you're done collecting your data by April. And we are working through our analysis. So that course is from January to April, 6 Saturdays. And most recently, it was taught by myself and Dr. Donna Kozak together because we already know your projects. And then in May 2028, this is Education Action Research. This is actually where you write up your project, everybody. So last time Dr. Benjamin Datu taught this course. And so this is actually saying, if this is what I found, how do I communicate what I found? And so you work through the process of writing up and communicating your findings and writing up your paper. And then in July 2028, we come together for a week, the last week of July. And at that time, you present what you learned. And it's like a little conference where we present to each other and we celebrate each other and we feed each other. And we are just supporting you through the whole program to define a project, plan a project, carry out a project, analyze what you're finding, and communicate what you've learned. And that, Froleagues, is the journey of the program. Just a reminder, it starts the last week of July 2026, and it finishes the last week of July 2028. You probably saw that there were 2 electives in the program. We have actually planned courses to go there that we can all take together, but you are also welcome to take one of the other courses as one of your electives. And some of those electives happen here on the Vancouver campus. These are just examples of what this looks like. But we already have a full suite of courses that you can take together. But just so you know, you could sub out 2 of those courses for other things. Just want to point out that the 2 courses that are electives are actually helping you write your proposal. So if you feel confident doing that without us, excellent. Otherwise, maybe take the electives that are already set up in the program. And over to you, Kelvin.
Okay. So regarding the applications requirements, let me just move my window over. Yeah, so all students must meet the admission and application requirements of both the Faculty of Graduate Studies and the program. And everything that I'm about to mention would mainly apply for applicants that graduated from American and Canadian universities. If you are from the rest of the world, the GPA and the duration of the degree that's accepted by UBC might be a little bit different. But in general, we are looking at firstly a 4-year undergraduate degree with an average in the B plus range for all senior level courses. And B plus range is roughly 76% at UBC. And if you are from a Chinese university, that is closer to an 85% on the PRC grading scale. And when we refer to as senior level courses, these would be your third and or fourth year level courses, depending on which university you're coming from. But please note that this is not a hard cutoff point, meaning that even if your GPA doesn't quite meet the above criteria, let's say you're only a few percentages off, the Department of Curriculum and Pedagogy may still submit a special case rationale on your behalf to recommend you for admission to UBC grad school if we believe the rest of your application is still considered strong enough. So what are these other parts of the application that you might be able to shine, you wonder? So firstly, preference will be given to those with 2 years of teaching experience or equivalent engagement with schools, local or international communities, NGOs, and other related activities, and also those who have demonstrated academic interest in this particular area of study. And you'll also be asked to include a 600-word statement of intent, clearly outlining experience and interest in practitioner inquiry and place-conscious pedagogies, and how the specialization in curriculum studies supports your professional goals. So these 600 words is a good chance for you to sell to the program why you are a good candidate, what you're passionate about, and what makes you a good fit for the program. And you'll also be asked to provide 3 letters of recommendation. These are your reference letters. And you will include, whenever possible, professors or administrators who can speak to your experience and interest in the topic, and also your academic abilities and potential to complete a graduate program. You'll also be asked to upload a resume or CV. And an important thing to note is that this is a CV for the purpose of applying to a graduate program. So you do not need to limit yourself to a traditional 1 or 2 page resume that you might usually use when applying for a job or a professional position. Your resume or CV can be as short or as long as you need it to be in order to include all of your relevant experience and such. So if, for example, you need a total of 5 or 6 pages to include the full extent of your academic, professional, and volunteer experiences, please go ahead. And you'll also be asked to provide scanned copies of all official transcripts and also your degree certificate if your degree is not from Canada. And when we mean by official transcript, like all official transcripts, we do mean all. So if, for example, you took 1 term of exchange courses at another university, you'll have to provide the transcript for that university as well. let's say you transferred over. Maybe you did a few years at Langara College and then you've finished your degree at SFU, you'd be asked to provide the official transcripts of both institutes as well. The only instance where you do not need to provide the official transcript of a post-secondary institute that you have attended is if the course that you took is not an accredited course. So if the course that you took doesn't have any credit numbers assigned to it, or it's something like, oh, this is just a 20-hour professional development course, then those would not count. And in those instances, you do not need to include it in your academic history or provide transcript. But also if it's a non-accredited course, but the subject matter is still related to place-conscious pedagogies and protection inquiry, you'd be encouraged to mention it as well. And lastly, regarding English language proficiency, if you are from a university outside of Canada where English is not the primary language of instruction, you'd be asked to provide English test results, basically. And the test must have been taken within the last 24 months at the time of submission of your application. So what this basically means is that your test result, your English language test results, if you need them, must be ready to be uploaded when you submit your application. It is not a case where you can be offered admission first and then retroactively try to meet the English language requirement. It must be met from the very beginning. So let's move on to the applications procedure. Everything is done online, and you navigate to grant.ubc.ca/apply/online, and you click apply. And then you be prompted to either log in with your CWL or create a CWL if you have never attended UBC. And CWL stands for campus-wide login. It's basically your login for everything online UBC related. It is the login that you use to access your application, the login that you use to access your student account, and the login that you use to access all your online course content, and also the online catalog of UBC Library. So yes, in case you were wondering, even though this is an online/hybrid program, you are still able to access the full plethora of UBC Library's resources. So once you've logged in, under degree program selection, you're going to type in professional cohort. It is very important that you select the right program name because there is no way for staff to quote unquote switch your programs around if you apply to the wrong program. If you apply to the wrong program, you unfortunately have to reapply to the right program from scratch, basically. The program name should be Curriculum Studies Professional Cohort MEd. Since part-time professional course different than a regular on-campus program, it's very important that you're applying to Curriculum Studies Professional Cohort MEd. You select the program, and when you reach the experience and interest page in the application, make sure it is the right program and include the program code of KTY7. I repeat, the program code is KTY7. This will differentiate it from all other versions of similar programs. And once you have finished entering all relevant information, you will click Declare and Submit. And also, before you press Submit, or after pressing Submit, you'll be asked to provide the relevant supporting documents. These would be your official transcripts, and degree certificate if that is required as well, your references, your statement of intent, your resume, and also your English proficiency report, so your English language scores, if this applies to you. And a side note that if you are admitted to the program, you will have to provide official sealed transcripts to the Faculty of Graduate and Postdoctoral Studies. The only exception would be if you are a UBC student or alumni, and if that applies to you, we have all your records on file already. So I just want to talk about references a little bit more. When adding your references to your application, you'll be asked whether they are professional or academic references. And academic references are those who know you in an academic capacity. So maybe things like former instructors or professors who can comment on your ability to handle graduate level course load and finish graduate level courses, basically. And professional references would be those who have supervised you in a work setting. So maybe principals, vice principals, or other non-educational supervisors. And these are individuals who can speak to your professionalism and also your expertise or interest in the subject area. And UBC grad school understand that it is not feasible for every single applicant to have academic references. Maybe it's been a while since you have done any school and your former instructors and professors are no longer reachable. And if that applies to you, then yes, only professional references is also okay. And regarding the actual reference letter submission, you are strongly encouraged to submit electronic letters of reference. And you'll do that simply by filling in the email addresses of your references and completing the online application. And yes, an email address is required. References with 3 web-based email addresses. So if they use something like at gmail.com, at hotmail.com, or at yahoo.com or something similar, they will receive a link to a paper form instead, which they can then print out and mail to our office. But for everyone else, once you submit and pay for the application, they'll automatically receive a link and instructions for completing the electronic reference form. And a reference letter can also take place of the form as long as it addresses all the questions that is asked in the form. So in an unlikely example, if your reference writes you a glowing reference letter, but also somehow managed to not tackle any of the questions asked in your reference form, then that is not okay. Everything in the reference form must be addressed either directly in the form or in the reference letter that is either replacing the form or accompanying it. And yeah, just go back to folks who cannot submit an electronic reference form either because of the email addresses or simply because they don't want to. Sealed and endorsed reference letters may be sent by physical mail, and you'll be asked, the reference will be asked to include the 4-character cohort code KTY7 when submitting your reference. And must also arrive in a sealed envelope with their signature on the flap of the sealed envelope, basically. And if you think that this sounds all very tedious, that's because it is. And it is to prevent academic fraud, which has been known to happen before. So yeah, for those choosing to submit paper references, please send it to the mailing address shown on the slide right here. And there's no need for you to write this down because your reference will receive this information as well. And regarding the application deadline, the online application is open right now, and you can apply as early as right after this info session if you like. The application deadline is for March 15th, 2026, with the document upload deadline being March 29th, 2026. So by March 15th, you must have paid for the application and submitted it, but you have until March 29th to get everything else in order. So your transcripts, your references, and so on and so on. And there is a difference in application fee between domestic and international applicants as listed right here. And only Canadian citizens or permanent residences are considered as domestic applicants. If you belong in any other category, you are considered an international applicant. So regarding finances, the total program tuition amount is listed on the slide right here, as well as the per installment amount. So graduate tuition is assessed as an annual program fee divided into 3 equal installments due at the beginning of each academic term. So that would be September, January, and May. It is payable over a minimum of 7 installments, which, as Leyton mentioned before, is for one of each 7 term in your program. And the tuition is charged as a whole program fee and not assessed on a per credit basis. So in human speak, that basically means if for some reason you end up taking less courses, maybe you are able to transfer some credits over and you end up taking less courses, you'll still be paying the same exact amount. On the flip side, if you choose to take additional electives, either for your personal enjoyment or personal professional development, that is okay. You will be paying for the same exact amount as well. So let's say you take the 10 courses for your graduate program and you decide to take additional maybe accounting or maybe French courses for your personal enjoyment. That's completely fine. You'll be paying the same exact tuition amount overall. And as long as you still are able to maintain your GPA, nothing stopping you from taking as many electives as you'd like. So tuition may be raised by up to 2% annually. And if there is a tuition increase, it will be announced in spring of each year. And regarding funding eligibility, since this program is considered part-time, is not eligible for most traditional student loans and types of funding. That's because for a lot of these loans and traditional types of funding, they will look at whether a program is considered part-time or not. And this program is unfortunately both part-time and also online/hybrid. So even if you end up taking a lot more electives per term, and you somehow end up with a quote unquote full course load, since the program is still part-time, if people come to UBC and ask what type of student you are, we are legally obliged to say that you are a part-time student. But if your school district or whichever province or state or city that you're from does include funding opportunities that doesn't care if a program is online or part-time, then in those instances, feel free to go ahead. And since fees are subject to change annually, only information on the UBC calendar is official, and everything that I just covered on the slide is for reference only. So continuing on, student fees are charged in addition to tuition, and they vary from term to term. You'd be budgeting for approximately $800 to $900 per term. However, most of these fees you are able to opt out of. So for example, if you have your own coverage, you can opt out of things like the medical and dental plan, Or if you live outside of the Greater Vancouver area, you can opt out of things like the U Pass, which is the local public transit pass. And there are also other small student fees that you can choose to opt out of here and there. And that can potentially lower your student fees per term by half or even more, depending on what you are opting out of. And regarding fees related to the in-summer session, as noted right here, students should budget for travel to and from the Kootenays for the on-site summer sessions and support in finding short-term accommodations is available through the WKTEP office. And if you have more questions regarding that, feel free to email that office or email Leyton for additional information. And on a side note regarding teacher education certificates, and this is for teachers in the Vancouver Lower Mainland that have taken UBC students in their classrooms as student teachers. If this applies to you, you may be eligible for a tuition credit. I believe is 1.5 credit that you can claim. So, less tuition, who doesn't like that? But yeah, if this applies to you, please contact the teacher education office at teacher.ed@ubc.ca. Teacher. There we go.